want to shore up some of the con arguments before I get back to innovating for this country. First of all, there is some worry that in the proposal for action, it does not say that we are going to cut these deductions. However, if you look in the proposal for action, yes, I do have an argument. We are going to mitigate deduction that is in the last part of the proposal for action. So, also, there's some worry that the tax cut will trump the loopholes. However, it is proven that the $124 billion that the United States gives out in deductions will trump the 15% cut in corporate tax. So you have to remember that currently we are really only taxing at about 18% with these deductions. Also, there's some worry that there's no money in the United States to invest in this because there is such economic distress. However, I point you to an article published by J.P. Morgan who calculated that the global social investment market could swell over the next decade to anywhere from $400 billion to $1 trillion, generating profits of $183 billion to $667 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a market for this proposal. There is money for this proposal. We just have to take it. Also, there's some worries about the sunspot programs and that we've already done such a program. However, this is a lot different than what we have usually done with private investors. Take Salinger, for example. We will no longer have a Salinger problem because the government will no longer pick the winners and losers of this country. We're going to cut down on such deduction, and we're going to cut down on the government's hand in this role. Also, there's some argument that the United States is the most brilliant country in the world. As I would love to believe that we are the most brilliant country in the world, it is my gravest comment to make that unfortunately we have suffered the last couple of decades. And I look forward to having innovation spark such brilliance again within the United States. And lastly, there's some worry that some of these programs won't turn profits, so there will be no investment. However, the investors are making money off of the saved money from the government. It does not have to turn a profit. And there are stipulations within the proposal that say that Congress can override this and fund it themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my last proposal of my Dakota career. And I want to end by saying, go Heels, go America. God bless you, God bless the state of North Carolina, and God bless the United States of America.
I am strongly against this proposal because there's just too many...
Would you pardon me, Delegate? Thank you.
There's just too many loopholes. First, the American Innovation Initiative doesn't have any feasibility. While there's no feasibility, the proposal becomes a huge setup on the investors. Why would I invest millions and billions of dollars to projects that becomes ineffective? The proposal talks about social problems changing lives of many, but still this proposal is only doing the opposite of saving money, but raising America's taxes and draining the people's money system. Investors want to see 100% success on the projects and profit from them, not having a what-if factor into play. Another note, social programs like NASA is already owned by the government, so it's the government's duty to give money to NASA. As well as social and local programs already have leverage on private investors for transport crews, support, and management costs. So this sector eliminates the reason of really having an American innovative initiative. This proposal also becomes too broad on its expectations of its programs. State and local programs vary from education to infrastructure to liberal arts, which makes a scenario for the American Innovation Initiative giving out too much expense with no revenue. As well, social impact bonds are only used for limited use only because while they do operate over a fixed period of time, they do not operate a fixed rate of return. And there is no evidence of social impact bonds being a long-term investment. Even though government wouldn't pay a penny for effective programs, social programs will make investors become more bankrupt sooner than later. For example, NASA's Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs was a total of $23.9 billion. However, with the government's money and the private investor sector, they were able to pay off with no debt.
Thank you, Delegate. Your time has elapsed.
Thank you.
In January of this year, the United Nations released a report that stated that in 2030, the demand for renewable energy and green technology would be 90% of the demand that is for oil right now. The question that everybody's been asking since is, how are we going to get from yesterday to tomorrow as the market remains stuck on oil and coal? And what we need to see is that last year, China inserted a $30 billion subsidy into their solar industry. Now, because of research and development, they have the fastest growing solar industry in the world and produce 41% of the solar industry, solar power in the world. Now, the point here is not that we need to act like China. The point is that we now know how this market is acting and how the market is going to go over the next few decades. Thus, in terms of incentive, with these bonds, it seems clear that investors are going to have a lot of reason to buy these up and invest in the solar industry and other renewable energies here in America. The supply is there, the incentive is there, but there's a huge gap between today and tomorrow in terms of supply, and this proposal is the way to build that bridge. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
The delegate yields his time to the chair. The chair now seeks.
Yield the remaining time to Monaco of South Carolina.
That is your right.
I have two main issues with this proposal. My first issue is that it creates an unneeded federal bureaucracy. It is already possible for private investors to invest in social programs and organizations. You see that now so much that creating a federal bureaucracy for it is completely unneeded and will actually drive investors away from the market. The other issue that I have is that this proposal has a part of it that is unconstitutional. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says that the government will secure for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. However, when you look at line 60 of the proposal for action, you see that private investors, quote, will have the full right of negotiation over intellectual properties. This proposal seeks to take rights away from inventors and discoverers and instead put them in the hands of capitalists and investors that are not having social programs in mind. And with that, I yield any remaining time to Canonico.
44 seconds.
Delegate Canonico from South Carolina. I'm basically against this proposal because it's ultimately not the right time to invest. It to allow these private investors because they don't have the money to invest in the United States. The British Foundation quotes the European Economic Review pointing out that the dollar's been declining against the euro about 40% between 2000 and 2011 because the debt has doubled in the United States. Without credible deficit regulation, the investors will not have enough money and they will not take the risk in investing in United States bonds and in the United States programs. So even though we do pass these proposals, the investor will actually not try to invest in the United States, but rather they'll try to sell out their holdings because the dollar is ultimately becoming a currency that is not controllable. Standard & Poor's ultimately downgraded us last summer from a AAA status to a AA minus status.
Thank you, delegate. Your time has elapsed. The chair now seeks the next pro speaker. Is there such a speaker on the floor?
So I'd like to reserve my right to yield the remainder of my time to Marcella from Texas.
That is your right.
First of all, I'd like to address an issue with these social programs and kind of focus on the compromise side. A lot of our social programs from the liberal point of view, we say that they're necessary, and on the conservative point of view, we say they're necessary, but we don't really know where to pay for them. This is a beautiful compromise. If the social program is necessary, we can fund it through a private investment that found out through the private sector. Three things are focused on here: competition, accountability, and stability. As I said, companies will act in competition to find out which one wants to fund the social program more. Don't you think a little advertising is going to come out of this? If you're funding the social program for an entire state, I think a little bit of advertising companies are really going to enjoy that. Also, accountability. Social programs perseverance addresses that they have to be automatically reviewed by the private sector. Automatically, the private sector is going to review if it's and hold Congress accountable to see if it's a necessary social program. And stability, if it's necessary, and if it's being funded right, it'll be stable, and we won't have to be questioning whether Congress needs to repeal it or needs further funding. Right now, you'll mind to Marcella from Texas.
The delegate yields 55 seconds.
Marcella from Texas. Looking at the economic side of the social program, many people actually ignore the fact that social program investment actually is beneficial to the economy. If you take in macroeconomics, you inherently know that investment is necessary for capital formation. Without capital formation, there is no economic growth. Social programming does call for investment, which thus leads to capital formation, and in the long run will lead to economic growth in the country. All we're really doing is allowing for economic growth through a social avenue, something that has not really been done in the United States. Thus, is a completely new genre of investment in the United States. What we're really doing is opening a new market entirely, which will be good for the economy as a whole in the United States. And at the same time, this proposal does deal with the capital tax on corporations, which lowering at the same time, all we really do is lead to more economic growth overall. Thank you. And with that, I'll leave any remaining time I have the chair.
Joe,
I would like to reserve my right to yield the remainder of my time to speak.
you have that right.
Thomas Edison said when he failed and didn't make a light bulb, that he didn't fail, he found 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb. The problem with this proposal is that it assumes that research can have specific goals and meet these goals. When we do research, we don't know what it is we're going to find, and we have no idea how soon, if things are going to be useful right after we discover them. It takes time for us to realize the value in these, and if we try and put a dollar amount with these investors on what we have researched right after it's done, then we're not going to get anything new and innovative, and it's just going to be the same thing over and over. Also, I do not believe that we can actually make up for a 15% tax cut just by closing loopholes. Maybe a 5%, but I believe that 15% is not reasonable. And I yield the remainder of my time to Smith from Florida.
Dale yields 60 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Colin Smith, and I'm from Florida. First off, I'd like to say that the proposal for action, it says nothing about closing loopholes, so I don't know what his definition of closing loopholes, but I'm sure he's going to have an argument for that. Not only that, I'd like to point out that, let's say I'm a corporation, I'm a business, right, and I invest in a social program. Then, let's say education, for example, then I go and invest in a program such as construction or deconstruction. Now, as a businessman, I will do anything in my power to make that money back. So what I will do is I will destroy that social program, and then, in turn, since now I've invested in not in a social program, now I've invested in construction and in demolishment, now I can demolish all the school systems and let it private. So examples like that, because since we're allowing people to invest, we're also allowing people to invest in something that allows them to invest negatively and actually make money off of a social program failing. So I'd like for you to take that into consideration and really think, how would this affect you? Do you really want a corporation?
Thank you, Delegate. Your time has elapsed. Amendments are now in order on the floor.
One of the greatest scientists and inventors, Thomas Edison, tried and failed nearly 2,000 times to develop the carbonized
Delegate, could you
filament.
please state your name and delegation, please?
Both got from South Carolina.
Thank you.
Thomas Edison tried and failed nearly 2,000 times to develop the carbonized filament for this light bulb. And when asked about it, he said, "I didn't fail, but instead, I found 2,000 ways how not to make a light bulb." And sadly today in our society, we're not making anything because we don't have any funding for it because of the 2008 recession. This proposal is highly appealing because it allows investors to find investments in a centralized location, and it will affect two different areas, research and development and corporations. So first, when looking towards research and development, we see two things. First, we see the United States as one of the leading research and development societies in the world. And second, we're losing money. And this proposal provides an idea where we can do both and continue going on. So first, we see that we're strained with money because of the 2008 recession. This proposal allows us to find opportunities in the heart of research and development, college institutions, where research happens every day. And I'll give you an example. In South Carolina, at Clemson University, a company called Kiatech developed a method to test cancer medicine at a 3D level. This mechanism allows healthcare medicine development to decrease by 18%. And this innovation was done by private investors, and which this proposal highly is appealing to. So we must pass the proposal. But second, this corporations thing. Because the United States has a 35% corporation tax, the United States is not an appealing place for business to grow up or stay at. But this proposal will decrease the taxes to 20%, making the United States a competitive area for businesses to stay and move into. Furthermore, the United States has infrastructure and a decent workforce. Not big compared to China, but it's highly educated.
I'm sorry, Delegate, but your time has elapsed. The floor is now open to con pro debate.
Prevalence in the field of innovation is by looking at the number of patents filed per country. Patents are an idea or innovation's equivalent to copyrights. Patents ensure that an idea or innovation is protected throughout their country or throughout the world. According to the patent statistics by the World Intellectual Property Organization, the organization that files all patents worldwide, Japan is leading the world in filed patents with the United States in a close second. These are international patents. The rest of the world's countries are not even close to catching up with Japan or America. However, the statistics also show that the United States has more patents filed within the United States than Japan has filed within Japan. This is because, as the leading patent attorney of Dallas said earlier this week, he said that the patents that are filed in the United States are filed there because the United States has the leading number of corporations in the world. Whenever countries file patents, they first file it in their own country, obviously, to secure it within their own rights. They second go to the United States because that's where the real market is. This applies not only to new science innovations, but also any ideas. Any idea in the world can be patented. This includes the social programs that the speaker talked about. Second of all, our government already funds programs such as these. For example, the Department of Energy funds programs such as the SponSpot Initiative, which provides money for funding for colleges and companies who come up with ideas to solve social, economic, business, science problems, and they give them a specific topic that the government believes would be necessary, and they grant them money depending on their innovations. Thirdly, the authors intend to cut corporation taxes to ensure that the innovators maximize profits, but this would not occur. An even more extreme implementation of what the author intended was enacted in 2004, and it simply did not work. This cut was specifically designed for research and innovation. It cut their tax rate by a full 30%. This appears, as according to what the author was previously stating, that this would give these companies more room to make innovations and come up with new ideas. However, Senator Carl Levin, chairman of the committee that enacted this tax break, quoted that there is no evidence that the previous reparation tax giveaway put Americans to work, and substantial evidence that it grew executive paychecks, propped up stock prices, and drew many money offshore. Delegates, I stress to you once more that this proposal is altogether unnecessary. America is already leading the world in innovations. We're the most brilliant country in the entire world, and everyone knows that. No country would ever stand up to America in the field of innovation and new ideas simply because
I'm sorry, delegate, but your time has elapsed.